Hey, and welcome to the Meditations and Musings podcast. I'm Elena Lipson. I'm a mama, I'm a wife, and I'm the founder of the Divine Self-Care Circle membership and the Virtual Retreat Academy. I don't believe that you have to sacrifice your body, your health, or your family in order to create true abundance and prosperity. I believe in living based on the divine feminine metrics of success, and these include pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. Each week, I'll bring you 1 to 2 new episodes. One of these will be a guided meditation that you don't have to do on the meditation pillow, and the other will be a conversation to help you access your inner wisdom, to ignite abundance, and inspire others to do the same. I invite you to join me on this journey back to the magic of a divinely aligned and well cared for you. And now, join me for today's episode.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Divine Self-Care Meditations and Musings podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another episode. I am so blown away by the comments, the reviews, the messages that I receive each and every week from all of you who are letting me know that what we're talking about is what you need to hear. So I would love to know more about what you want to hear. So before I get started on today's topic, which is, what do you really want? Like, what do you really want? And then I want to share my 5 divine rules for planning, whether it's the next month or the next year, if you're listening to this just as we're about to roll into 2019, to really understand that planning is so much more than a spreadsheet or choosing a word for the year or just looking at your calendar and deciding when you're going to do what you're going to do. The energy behind planning is so much more important, and taking time to really create some intentional sacred space around your planning is going to be much more important than any revenue number, any goal that you have, because infusing it with your deepest intention and the reasons why you're doing things, and really understanding what you want, not what somebody else wants for you, not what other people want that you think sounds good, which is, maybe point you in the right direction. But I want to know what you want. And in terms of what you want to hear more of in the coming episodes of this podcast, I'd love to hear from you. And the best way to do that is to find me on Instagram at Elena_Lipson and message me, DM me, message me letting me know, what do you want to hear on the podcast? Whether you're a long time listener or whether you're new to the podcast, your voice matters to me. Of course, I have my own subjects and podcast ideas. If I didn't, I wouldn't have started the podcast, but I definitely want to know, what do you want to hear more about? Do you want to hear about mothering and self-care? Do you want to hear about being an entrepreneur and self-care? Do you want to hear about self-care and relationships? Do you want to hear more about spirituality, the woo-woo energy practices that I do? Nothing is off limits. Let me know by sending me a message on Instagram at Elena_Lipson. That's ELENA_LIPSON. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. I want to know, what do you really, really want? I want to start by reading a post that I wrote, must be about 4 to 5 weeks ago now. And it got a lot of attention, a lot of comments, a lot of feedback. So I wanted to read the gist of what I wrote, because this is where I stopped and had to really ask myself the question, what do I want? So here's what I said when I asked myself this question. And I asked myself this question so often that it just feels like a check-in point. But this was at a point where I was feeling not exactly sad, not exactly depressed, but I was feeling like it was time to adjust myself by really getting clear and shutting down external input. So this is what I said when I asked myself the question, what do I want? Sometimes I start with what I don't want and make my way back. Today's new boundaries and releases, no more compromises when it comes to making time to write my book. No more putting someone else's dreams ahead of mine, unless it's my son and I choose to give him my love, time, attention, and energy. No more saying yes when my heart and gut are whispering no, please say no. No more holding back tears or laughter or silence or yelling when those are what I need at the core of my being. No more restrictions on myself that come from others. No more repeating old stories about how others need to change. It's all me. It's all a mirror of me. No more hiding any bits of myself except for the ones I choose to keep private and protected from public eyes. No more templates in my life, my family, or my business. No more expectations because they are just illusions. I say what I need and I speak my desires, period. And I can also give myself what I need and want without waiting for permission. Today, I am as much at the edge of tears as I am at the edge of laughter and joy. And maybe they are the very same edge. Either way, I allow myself to leap and surrender. I know that I am always guided, always protected, always loved and blessed. I choose it so. So that is the soul-based work on what I really wanted. So I hope you heard some intentions and words in there that resonated for you when it comes to you thinking about what is it that you truly want. Not what you wanted 10 years ago, not what you wanted 5 years ago, and not even what you wanted maybe last month, but really continuing to refine yourself, continuing to evolve your needs and desires so that they match and stay aligned with who you are becoming. Because ultimately what you want is going to change as you evolve in life, as your circumstances change, as your marital status changes, as your children grow. The stories continue to change. But if you stay stuck in your old stories based on the things and rules you made years ago, or even a year ago, you're going to feel that dissonance. You're going to feel that misalignment because you're not present for what is now, and you're not being who you want to become. So let's go ahead and jump into the 5 divine rules for planning, whether it's 2019 or whether it's the next month. The first rule is do it and commit to making time. Don't just say you're going to do it. Don't just think you're going to do it, but actually put it on your calendar. Just as I teach in my Divine Self-Care Circle, when you think about self-care or play or rest or massages or time to have difficult conversations, if you just keep thinking about them, that's where they're going to stay as swirling thoughts in your mind. In order to make them happen, you put them on your calendar. You put them literally on your calendar. Just like you plan date nights, just like you plan going to the store and doing food shopping, all the things in your life that you get done, you actually plan them out. Some things you don't have to plan anymore because they become just part of your landscape of who you are. But when you're learning new things, when you're trying to change and evolve, those things are just new habits that you're trying to implement. And those new habits can be a struggle because you already have other habits and they're going to take place of other things. So you have to consciously remove the habits you no longer choose and add the ones you commit to. And planning is one of those habits. I commit to it on a weekly basis for my business, and I commit to it on a regular basis for my lifestyle. So number 1 is actually do it and commit to putting that time on your calendar. And when it comes to that time, don't start washing the dishes or doing the laundry or scrolling Facebook. Actually sit down and do it. Once you start, much like going to the gym, it feels really good once you're doing it. So that's number 1. The second divine rule for planning is make it slow and sacred. So why slow and sacred? Well, you're important. Your life is important. I don't think you're here by accident. Whether you're here to help 5 people or 5 million people, you are here for a reason. And your life requires sacred attention. So don't hurry through this. Don't squeeze in time to plan your life between dinner and bed if it's only 20 minutes. Don't squeeze it in between appointments or just a list that you make while you're standing at the grocery store. That's simply not good enough. So slow down and make it sacred. Yes, you might have to miss your favorite show. You might have to skip out on something that you were going to have planned, but this is so worth it. Take time. Give yourself at least 30 minutes, maybe an hour, right? Maybe a whole morning, a whole afternoon. Instead of doing anything else, instead of washing the dishes, slow down, sit down, light a candle, put on some beautiful music, whatever feels sacred to you. If you want to do it in bed, surrounded by journals, fabulous. If you want to do it at the table, surrounded by candles and beautiful music, great. If you want to do it with a best friend or your partner, do that. But first, take some time with yourself. Make it slow, make it sacred. That's number 2. Number 3 is look back first, and then release, celebrate, and burn. Now, I'm going to give you an example of some questions that I ask myself when I look back and release. Now, I do this on a regular basis because as I teach in my circle, we are, as human beings, aligned to cycles and rhythms in nature. And one of the most natural ones that I align with is a new moon and a full moon, which happen every month. So I love to release things on the new moon and call things in on the full moon. It's just something that I really enjoy doing. So because it's something I commit to on a regular basis, it's something that's just part of my landscape. But if you're not used to doing this on a regular basis, this is a wonderful opportunity to, again, you could look back on the whole year if that's what you're doing. One of the things that helps me to do that is pulling out my calendar. Because sometimes, when you're at the end of the year, you forget what you're celebrating in January or February or March. So again, if you're making it slow and sacred and really making time to commit to doing some reflecting and planning, one of the things you'll want to bring with you is your planner so you can see what it is that you were doing a whole year ago. Because our human memories tend to forget the good things. Sometimes all we can remember are the disappointments. So don't overlook that part. So when I'm doing this looking back part, this release, celebrate, and burn, what I love to do is just look back and ask myself questions like, what was really fun for me this year? Because don't forget that play and celebration is one of the juiciest parts of life. It's not all about the work. It's all about creating what you want to create, honoring the losses, taking the lessons, and celebrating what worked so that you can do more of it. Because who wants to just trudge through life thinking about all the losses and constantly trying to change yourself, right? You want to look back and think about what felt really fun for me this year. That's a great question. Another great question is, what brought me energy last year? What things did you do that really made you feel alive and full of energy? What made you smile last year? Right? These are the fun questions. These are the things that you're celebrating. What were the wins of this last year? And then you can go a little bit deeper about the people. What and who were you grateful for in this last year? Sometimes it's the people who came and left. Sometimes it's just a brief relationship. Sometimes you had relationships that went in a different direction, but you can still be grateful for those lessons. And so another question is, what's the most important lesson or lessons that I learned this year? This could be about figuring out how you like to work. What if you started giving yourself time to write? What if you started to make commitments that you couldn't keep? What did you learn about that? Sometimes not doing something is as important as doing it because you start to really understand your own capabilities and your own limitations. Maybe you intended on starting a project, but you didn't because your time was filled up with other things. These are the kind of situations that you have to reevaluate. Maybe there's something to delegate. Maybe there's something to stop doing. Maybe there's something to say no to. I know we've got a lot of conversations on this podcast about boundaries and saying the art of the graceful no. Because the more you can say no to things that no longer serve you, the more you're making room for the things that you truly desire. Now, one of the things that I work really deeply with women on is to release that regret and resentment. So sometimes just taking a moment to think about, what do you regret from this year? Maybe there's a conversation that you wanted to have but didn't have, or something you wanted to do but didn't do. These are important reflections to have because you don't want to go into the next year just doing the same thing over and over again. So if there's something that you feel like you should have done but didn't do, that's okay. It's not about punishing yourself. It's really about becoming aware of a why and the fact that you didn't do something that you wanted to do, and be honest with yourself about it. And of course, one of my favorite questions to ask is, do you feel like you truly received the self-care, the nourishment, and the rest that you craved last year or this last year? And if the answer is no, then maybe it's time to move those things forward. So those are examples of questions that I asked myself about last year. So once I do this, and once I really have some good answers to those questions about last year, the things that, the wins, the losses, and the lessons, all of those things, including the questions, and you can ask yourself, there's lots of good questions you can ask yourself. Those were just a few. Sometimes I actually take that piece of paper and I celebrate it and I honor it. And I say, thank you for the gifts of this last year. Thank you for all of the lessons learned. Thank you for all of the wins. Thank you for all of the people who came and left my life. Thank you for all of the moments that I honored myself, and thank you for the lessons of the moments when I didn't. Thank you for all of the abundance. Thank you for all of the moments of self-doubt, because I know I learned what I needed to learn. You just honor it and you witness it. And then you can move on and say, I now release this last year. I honor it. I bless it for all of the lessons. And I thank it for all that it has brought to me. And now I'm ready to release it and honor myself moving forward into the next season of my life. And you can actually burn the piece of paper, safely, of course, outside in a bowl or in a sink. Burn that piece of paper to really create a symbol of you stepping through into a new season of your life. Which brings us to number 4, taking some time to ask good questions about the following season of your life, the next year, if you're doing a yearly planning session. So the first question is, what do I want more of? And what do I want less of? Right? Again, you can use the last questions to inform what you want to create more of. A question that I really love asking myself is, if I can look forward 1 year, what is the best version of this year? What are the things that I'm excited about? What are the things that make my body feel alive, that really give me goosebumps and chills to even think about, maybe at the edge of my own comfort? And then, of course, you can separate it into categories. Like, what would I feel really excited about creating in my business? You can have work goals, you can have money goals, you can have team goals, you can have, creating content goals. What are the most important ones? Really get clear on what you want to create. And if you find yourself simply recreating things from last year, this is where I would say, ask yourself if you're just stuck in a self-limiting pattern. Because if you keep creating the future based on the past, you're just going to keep staying on the same treadmill, the same hamster wheel, right? Spinning around and around and around. What if you could start with a blank slate? Just get playful here for a second. It might feel edgy. It might feel a little scary. But if you could just start over, again, this is not committing to getting rid of everything you've ever done, but it's actually creating that new synapse, a new opportunity. So you can start by saying, what if I had to start all over again? What would I really want to create? Not that you have to start all over again, but letting that dream, that what if question, inform what you're going to create, right? And then once you have a list of those things that make you feel just as excited as scared, which is a perfect place to be, then you ask yourself, what support do I need over this next year to help me create this vision? Now, if you're someone who already has support in place, then maybe it's just a matter of communicating those goals. And I would say if you have a partner in your home or children, this is a great time to really share what you want to create. Because I know how it feels. In the past, I've kind of kept everything inside. I didn't really share my vision or my goals with my family. For some crazy reason, I felt like I had to compartmentalize those two. And as soon as I realized that it's so much more fun, it's so much better when I can share it with them so that they can understand what I'm doing and have that vision with me, then not only is it easier for me to ask for support during times that I need it, but it just is so much more fun. So if you share it with a best friend, but again, this has to be with someone who believes in what you're doing. No negative Nellies here. Nobody here to tell you you can't. Because if you're sharing your dream with someone who's doubting you, then you're sharing it with the wrong person. Now, this isn't to say that you never share with someone who doesn't believe in you. It just means that you don't share the details. Because especially in the online world that I'm in, especially as entrepreneurs, we're entrepreneurs and we're creators because we see things differently from most people, which means that when you're telling your vision or your dream to someone who doesn't have that same spirit of creativity, of what's possible, of magic, right? To know that you could create something, they're just going to give you feedback based on their own fears. Now, we spent an entire month on this in the Divine Self-Care Circle, so this isn't a problem you're going to solve right in the moment. But just know that if you do have someone in your life who's really close to you, who doesn't tend to support with positivity, but just critiques it in a negative way, you can just simply stop sharing with them. It's okay to keep it close to your heart. And what you might want to do is reach out and find 1 or 2 people who are peers or like-minded individuals or doing similar things and create a little accountability, a check-in, a regular connection with them, whether it's on the phone, whether they're in person, just someone who also is on this journey and needs someone to be a positive pair of eyes and a positive heart. Because it's hard enough to convince yourself to create, it's hard enough to convince yourself to be the person you want to be. If you have someone in your life who's not in that same mindset, it's going to be that much more difficult to continue. It's going to be much easier to just quit. And I don't want that for you. So if that's not something you want for yourself, it's okay. Just give yourself permission to either hold it close to your heart and just continue working on what you want to create, or find like-minded individuals. There are so many beautiful communities online, so many groups to be part of. I have a free self-care community called the Self-Care Meditations and Musings Podcast. It's a free group for this podcast where everyone's really positive and super supportive. You can find it on Facebook as well. If you can't find it, just message me on Instagram. We'll point you right to that page. So another question that I love to ask, of course, as the self-care coach that I am, is plan that self-care. How am I going to make sure that I take the most amazing care of myself over the next year? And this could be just as simple as putting a self-care play date for yourself on the calendar each week, making sure that you have good rhythms and practices. Don't forget the magic morning practice. When I meet someone who doesn't know where to start with self-care, the magic morning practice is one of the first places that I send you. So don't forget to go to elenalipson.com/gift and get your free video series about the magic morning practice. Because if you do this on a daily basis, it's your daily alignment. It's your daily attunement to feeling nourished, to feeling intuitive, to feeling present and alive and playful, to really tapping into that divine guidance and to moving your body each morning. I share a lot more about it in the free video series, and I'll be hosting another 5-day Magic Morning Challenge early in 2019. So make sure you get on my list, or make sure you follow me on Instagram so you can be part of that journey as well. We just ran one and hundreds of women came. It was so amazing. It's one of the first things I teach and one of the most transformative things as well. So if you put on nothing else but adding the magic morning practice to your new year each morning, even if it's just 5 minutes, you're going to start seeing how you can shift into possibility and potentiality. Okay, so those are the questions of looking forward. Number 4 was ask good questions moving forward. And number 5, and this is probably the most important one, which is commit. Commit to being the woman who is someone who creates what you want to create. Because if you are constantly working from the past, obviously you haven't created what you want yet, right? What you're dreaming into is what you want to create next. So the person that you were being last year or 2 years ago or 5 years ago is not the same person that's going to create the level of success on your terms, the level of self-care and nourishment on your terms, the level of possibility is who you are becoming. But if you can start feeling into who is she, what would she do? That in those moments of self-doubt, in those moments where things get hard, because they will get hard, you can say, okay, what would this 1 year ahead version of me do? What would the most aligned version of me do? Because if you are answering the questions from the past, even if you're answering the questions from the present, you might not get the same answer. So that's why it's so important not only to do this planning on a yearly basis, but to really start doing this on a regular basis, because when things get tough, if you can pause and say, okay, what would the most aligned, successful version of me do? Then it opens up new possibilities in your brain. And you can actually answer it with your heart, with your gut, instead of your brain. Because your brain is for planning, right? Your heart and your gut, which is the other thing I should say. When you're doing all of this, when you're sitting down and committing to make time to yourself, when you're making it slow and sacred, don't just create from your brain. Because your brain is always going to want to keep you safe and strategic and small, because that's where the gremlins live. But you want to start with really taking a deep breath before you do all this. Of really maybe even taking some time to dance and move and get in your body, get present. Maybe even meditate for 5, 10, 15 minutes and access your heart, access your gut, access that part of you that knows beyond what your brain is able to see in the moment, which is another reason to do the magic morning practice, because you connect with that part of you that thinks beyond the brain. It thinks with the heart, it thinks with the gut, it thinks with all of you, not just the part that can only envision what it's seen with your eyes, right? So let me quickly review these questions for you. So first you start by asking yourself, what do you really, really want? And then we're going to take that through this process of the 5 divine rules for planning, whether it's 2019 or just the next quarter. Number 1 is do it, commit, and make time on your calendar. Number 2 is make it slow and sacred. Don't rush this. You are worthy of taking more time. Number 3 is look back, release, celebrate, and then if you're like me, burn it. Just let go. Let go of it. Like it's done. It's time to step into the new. Number 4, as you look forward, ask good questions. And I gave you many, many questions as good examples, but you can come up with your own as well. And number 5 is commit to being that future version of yourself. And when you start to doubt and question and have to realign and rejig your plans, start from asking her, what would she do? Not what would your past do? Because you don't want to plan your future based on your past. It just doesn't work that way. You want to honor your past, take the lessons, celebrate the wins, but then you want to create from new possibility. So I hope you take what works for you from this list of 5 divine rules, but also to really feel the importance of not just starting your next season with carrying the baggage from the past, and really allow yourself to commit to taking some time, nice and slow, nice and sacred, and planning your 2019 as an opportunity, as a potential. And then I would say the most important thing again is to not get so attached to the details, but to really understand and commit to your personal evolution and being who you want to be now, not someday. All right, lovelies, that's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for being here with me. And if you heard some clanging during the episode, I just went and found out during the episode, as I had to edit this, is that my son and my husband were making some banana bread. So I'm going to go out there and help them and maybe enjoy some banana bread as well. So thank you so much for your patience. If you did hear that noise, if not, now you know what I'll be doing afterwards. Have an amazing, amazing week. Have a gorgeous day. And I can't wait to really continue this conversation around self-care, around the feminine metrics of success, around doing things differently, doing things your way, and most importantly, getting the rest, nourishment, and the real understanding that you are the embodiment of what you're creating, but you are not what you're creating. Your wellness, your health, your well-being, your daily alignment is what's most important as you create this path of being human and being in the world. So again, I'd love to hear what you think of this episode. If you leave a review or if you leave however many stars you want to leave me, it really helps the technical algorithms behind the scenes. If you share this episode with someone or a few someones, it really helps me to spread the word of self-care out there, of alignment, of nourishment, of redefining the hustle, and really understanding that there is a different way of doing life, business, and the bedroom based on you being a priority. Thank you again for being here. This is Elena Lipson, your self-care coach and mentor, and I'll see you for the next episode of the Divine Self-Care Meditations and Musings podcast. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening and learning about the new divine self-care way of being in your life, business, and the bedroom based on the divine feminine metrics of success: pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. If you're ready to bust the myth of overwhelm and tap into an inspired start to each day, I've put together a free video series for you to help you start each day with energy, inspiration, and ignite that inner pilot light which attracts joy, magic, and synchronicity. You can access my 3-step magic morning practice to help you ignite your inner light and attract the abundance that you're craving. Head on over to elenalipson.com/gift. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would so love if you share it with a friend, a sister, a mother, a daughter, and please leave a review. That is how the magic starts to ripple out. Here's wishing you a day full of beauty, magic, and divine self-care. I'll see you next time at the Meditations and Musings podcast.